Good morning, everyone. It is March the 31st, 2023. Now, in my last video, I touched on one of the situations that we were having in Hittenberg at the time, and that video was my previous one, Christine, on dealing with drugs from 1994 till now. And today I'd like to go a little bit further into the prostitution issue that we're having down here in Lower Town as well. But first I'd like to go on to a rather funny story about my first husband, the police officer, myself. And this was just after we got married, this incident happened. So to give you a little bit of background information, okay, I was very young when I married him. I met him just when I was going on 18. He was about 3 years older than I was. And I lived at home with my parents. And of course, I came from a middle-class family, and I was somewhat naive back then because I lived with them and I was well sheltered by them. And so I didn't know a lot about life at that time. And then he also, being single, he also lived with his mother up until we got married. So I married him at the age of 20. So we got married, and this is an incident that happened about 2 weeks after I married him. We got home, and one morning, all of a sudden, he very nicely announced to me that now that we were married and he wasn't living with his mother anymore, he couldn't very well ask her to do this. And I said, well, ask to do what? And he turned around and very informed me, literally, that now that he wasn't living with his mother, I was going to have to go out and buy his lipstick and his nylons for him. And I'm like looking at him and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, is there something he should have maybe told me before we got married? And so I'm thinking, oh, what's going on here? And then he's going on, he says, well, you don't have to worry about my dress. I keep it in my locker at the police department, at the police station. So now I'm trying to imagine, oh my gosh, he's got a dress in his locker. Well, what does he do? Has he got his uniform on one side of his locker and this dress on the other side of his locker? Now what's going on? So I guess my face kind of said it all to him. And he said, oh, it's not what you're thinking. It's for my undercover work. And I'm going, undercover work? What do you do? And of course, to me, undercover work, like what we see in the movies all the time, is when there's a stakeout and the two officers are usually sitting in, of course, in the unmarked car. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, what the heck is going on? You mean you dress up as a woman and you go in undercover in this undercover car with probably another male officer? And of course I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I'm thinking the worst. Well, there must be some kind of hanky-panky going on in the unmarked car. So I'm just looking at him. And so again, he's trying to figure out what's wrong with me because I must have had this totally stunned look on my face. And I said, well, I hope that at least the other officer's wife knows that there might be some hanky-panky going on in the car, in the unmarked car, when you're on your undercover duties. And he's looking at me and said, what do you mean in the car? You know, that's not what I'm talking about. What are you talking about? So we definitely had a definite communication problem here from the very beginning. So then I briefly explained to him what I was thinking, and he says, oh my gosh, no, that's not what my undercover work is. No, because of the prostitution issues, even back in those days, the police officers had to do something with the prostitution. So it was actually up to the officers. They chose him to dress up as a woman and be the decoy, the prostitute standing on the corner so that they could arrest the Johns at that time. And I'm, of course, breathing a big sigh of relief. Oh, my gosh. But he explained it so terribly well. And I said, that's fine. I'll go buy your lipstick and your nylons. But don't expect me to shave your legs, too. That is not in part of this plan here. So it got very funny, and I thought I'd like to tell you the story of what they did back in those days when there was no police women on the department at the time, that they had to get one of their male officers to dress up. So now I'm going to go on to a little bit more. I also talked about the John School from Hittenberg that we'd set up. The John School was and to catch the Johns and to do the sweeps, the police sweeps. Our target was not for the prostitutes at this point. We were targeting the Johns. So what we did was we set it up so that when the John was caught and he was deferred from going through the courts if he did not have a record, and he could go to the John school. Now, the way we had set up the John school was very simple. We were not targeting the girls at all. We were targeting, make it quite clear, we were targeting the Johns. So the Johns would have to listen to a former prostitute, someone who had been in the community, how it was affecting the community. So and speakers and a former prostitute and everything, it was set up so that they'd have to listen to just how things affected our communities at the time. So it was very good that way. And I'm looking at this today, and of course with my husband, my ex-husband, I'm so thankful, and that's why when you listen to me on my speech to the police commission there, why I so highly praised the female officers, it was a relief, because that was a conversation that I hope no other police officer had to explain to his wife, because boy, he really explained that one well to me on his undercover work. So this is one of the things that I wanted to explain today. I also, seeing what's going on today, it's not just the fact that they're standing up in corners with the prostitutes actually going after the males, because we also didn't want to go after the women too, because we also knew that there was the pimps and there was a sex trade, literally people making money off them. So it wasn't just only the prostitutes themselves that were doing the prostitution, even if they didn't have a pimp. So today we have a little bit of a different situation that I'm finding out with my videos, that it's not only the girls that are standing on the streets, on the corners, that are looking for these Johns. It's also the unsuspecting victims that are, because there's not affordable housing for them, they're having to lie anywhere on the streets. I've put it on my videos where they've been approached by people in cars and trucks, whatever, and propositioned to try and get them into the cars. So if we continue, and I'm hoping we continue the John sweeps, I'm thinking now that it's not only our female officers will have to dress up very nicely to solicit from the corner. I think they're also going to have to dress up as ordinary street people with ordinary clothes and just trying to sleep on the side of the road at night or wherever they can, and try and catch some of these Johns that are just going after them when all they're trying to do is sleep. Because like I said with Diane's video, that's all she was trying to do one night was to sleep. So I think that this is where I'm going to end it. I don't want it too long, because I can go on about a lot of things that I've done in the past. And one of the other things I will mention, though, too, is I firmly believe in restorative justice, because that was one of the other things that I did, was we had such a big, large security committee on Hittenberg at the time. We were divided into subcommittees. There were some that were working on the John sweeps and definitely the John school at the same time. I was on the committee that was trying to work for restorative justice through, at that time, the Crown Attorney, Andre Burzens. I can't pronounce his last name properly, but he was trying to set this up so we could divert people from jail and get the victims and the perpetrators all together and see if we could solve the problem. So this is another thing that I firmly believe in, is restorative justice, that we don't always have to send everyone to jail either. So we're trying very hard, and we've been trying for a long time, to try and find solutions to our problems without everything turning into a big schmozzle. And unfortunately, there's people that are not listening to us. In the governments, they're definitely not listening to us about the affordable housing, as I said. But there's other solutions that we can come up with. And it's more about building bridges, not walls, between people, between the street people, between the governments, between all of us. We have to start building bridges to solve these problems and work together. That's the only way we're going to solve it. And as I can tell you right now, one of the big government issues is we'll go into our health care, for example, on public health versus private health right now. Is the private health better? I don't think so, not necessarily. Bigger is not better. Because when we were doing this back in the 1990s, this was before the big amalgamation of the city of Ottawa in 2000. And it seemed like our counselors and our politicians were willing to listen to us. Much better. So we were getting somewhere with Hittenberg at the time. And we were having a great deal of success with it. So I'm going to end it there today. And I appreciate you listening to me again. And I hope you have a nice day. And I will talk to you again soon. Bye-bye. Take care.